Roy Prevost is a management consultant, strategist, and futurist with an entrepreneurial bent. He is also a social media expert. He often teaches modern-day business dreamers or owners how to use Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as smart marketing tools. It is my pleasure to welcome Roy Prevost to Studio 4 to tell us more and welcome your new book. I haven't read it yet. First time I've seen it.
Thank you.
But turbocharge your retail business, why not?
Why not?
How'd you get into this business?
Oh dear.
Turbocharging retail businesses.
Well, I owned a retail store for 5 years. I went through all the wholesale, retail, manufacturing, sales agency, all part of that. And then I followed a gentleman by the name of Frank Feather, who's a futurist, and he wrote the book, The Future Consumer. And I did some research on Walmart before they came to Canada. And just because they were having such an incredible success in the U.S. And then all these communities in Canada, when they got Walmarts, they called me to be a speaker and I started out by giving a ton of statistics on Walmart, and then I found out very quickly they didn't want to know statistics on Walmart. They want to know how to compete in that marketplace.
And what is the success of Walmart? Why?
Well, they have on several levels. First, they are incredibly efficient. Secondly, is Sam Walton went into tiny communities initially, and people like Sears and all the big guys said, Sam Walton, Walmart, no big deal. And his kingdom quickly grew, offering large quantities of product at minimal prices and kind of touched on a nerve in rural America. And before they knew it, they were being taken to task by Sam Walton.
And there was a Walmart greeter to greet you.
Yes.
So there's the personal side, and now there seems to be a greening of Walmart.
There is. Well, Walmart are anything if not pragmatic, and they either going into smaller stores inside of cities, which they never did before. They would put their store on the outside, and then have people go to the outskirts of the city. Now they're setting up very small stores, and there's a reason for that. The demographic is the baby boomer is still the major buying force. And so we, as a entity, population base, we don't need more stuff.
Got that right.
And so we're not into big consumerism anymore. And that's part of the challenge right now with the recession in the United States, is because that big bulk of the big demographic of baby boomers, what do we need?
Right. So the big box store idea is alive and well, but a lot of them are not alive and well because of that.
Well,
and I think we were raised in communities where you supported local business.
Exactly. At one point, that's true, and even today, I mean, there is a percentage of the consumers who will not darken the door of a big box retail store. Period. They don't want to go there. They don't want to be part of that. They don't like the culture, and they would rather shop locally if they're treated well. And if they're followed up with, and if they're invited to come back, and all these good things that create that connection.
And connection is what it's really all about in this high-tech, high-touch society, and certainly with social media, you being a social media expert, that.
Whenever I hear that word, I kind of cringe because it's changing so rapidly and so dramatically. Even I've hired somebody to do some of my, not to be too much on the learning curve in terms of the technology. I get the big picture of it, but the actual nuts and bolts of it, I tend to want to put it onto somebody who's really a technical person.
Sure, I understand. But do you think you could run an efficient and effective small business today, a profitable small business today, with no social media? Like not LinkedIn, not Twitter, you don't tweet, you don't do any of that, and still make a decent living?
Well, yes. But that's short term.
Sure.
On the medium and long term, you have to be there for sure. I mean, there's 750 million people on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, and Twitter is just kind of a mini blog or a mini kind of 140 characters. LinkedIn is more for business to business, and so that has a separate environment. But now Google Plus just came out. 10 million people signed up the first day.
10 million. Wow.
So it's considered one of the biggest launches.
And the blog world.
Oh,
hello.
It's everywhere.
Who to trust? Who not to trust?
Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword out there. You kind of have to do your homework.
For sure. Now, you did an interesting survey. Tell me about this. In a small mining town, and it essentially about enticing kids who leave the farm.
Well, actually,
go to university or travel the world to come back to the small town or the farm and use their skills.
Well, what I did, this community, Red Lake, Ontario, called me and said, you know, we have some challenges here. It's a mining town, they're very high median income, and we have our young people who leave, but they tend not to come back, and can you do something for us? Well, I came from a small rural community in Quebec, one of 9 children. My parents said to me, get out of here, go to Montreal, go find yourself a job. Because at that time it was an industrial era, and if you needed a job in the industry, you went to the big city.
Sure.
So I kind of took that experience, and then I went into this community, and I met with the people who were the key folks, the kind of the stakeholders, and I said, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to go into the high school tomorrow morning, go talk to these kids, and I'm going to tell them that they're the best and the brightest in the community, and we know you're going to go away, and we encourage it, but we want you to think about coming back if you decide to be an entrepreneur. And I created their future by going to places like Toronto, for instance. You'll be commuting an hour and a half each way. You'll have a house. All your money will be going to the house if you can get a house. Your kids will be in daycare. Meanwhile, and I created a really interesting picture. And then I said, by the way, if you come back here, you'll be a big fish in a small pond. You'll have the extra strength of community. You'll have all of these other things like safety for children, not having to commute, different lifestyle.
Right. Not lineups at the post office.
Nothing.
You know, things like that. I lived in Jasper, Alberta for several years, and it was great. Yeah, I know. No, you know, and say, oh, this is so good. I need a driver's license. I'll go get one. Take me 5 minutes.
And the beauty of it is that as I explain this to them, and so what I got the stakeholders to do is to help these kids develop some projects. So what I call a visceral imprint or footprint into the community. So they developed 3 projects, and then I left it in the hands of the stakeholders to take it from there. But it was the kids were just enthralled with it.
So if you look at resource-based communities, for instance, our loggers, your grandfather was a logger, and your dad was, and now the mills shut down, or there's not as much extraction going on in the woods. So you're not saying because you're from a logging family, come back here and be a faller. No. You're saying come back here and start a business, an interesting business, a little cafe.
Look, they can run from a log cabin with a simple trail to it. They can run a $100,000 business on the internet. That's only one component of it.
Wow, yeah.
Like you can, the world's your oyster if you have the right ideas and the right context. And plus, you can start a small business, and there's so many small businesses opportunities today.
So you have your little electronic cottage, essentially, but you also can get on the golf course.
Exactly.
Play golf ski. I'm just thinking of Jasper, how much fun we had there. And when Pierre Trudeau came to town, guess who got to entertain Pierre Trudeau? Because
exactly.
You did.
And it's not for everybody. So I always talk to the entrepreneurial component, because kids, they want to go where all the excitement is, and that's great until they get into their mid-20s and early 30s, and they have children, and now their world changes dramatically. And that's what I was pointing to them. I said, I want you to remember today as the guy who walked into your world and suggested that when you're driving on that highway in Toronto, you'll remember what I'm going to tell you today. And so it made an impact for sure.
Right, take the commute out of your life if you can.
If you can.
And if you live in a small place, then you vacation in the cities.
Exactly.
So you go to Paris or you go to San Francisco for your holiday, instead of living in San Francisco or living in Vancouver and going to Comox for your holiday.
Exactly. So you can go to the big city for a four-day weekend, get it out of your system, and go back home. I mean, that's traditionally how it's done.
In a global world, it's a tough sell sometimes because we're so mobile and
well, we're also got a celebrity-obsessed culture, and we got to be where the action is. And the older you get, of course, you see it differently. And then when you're young, I mean, you just you want to be everywhere.
Well, and I know our dream is. University grads go to New York. Everybody has to live in New York once, or everybody, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And I understand the desire to travel and know the world, and then perhaps to come home again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's always a pull to home. In fact, I did this conference. I spoke at this conference, and I called the title "E.T. Call Home." That was the title of the talk.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful because people said, you know what, it's true. I mean, we always have this pull. If we're respected, and if we're told that we're good, and they want us back there.
Sure. Friends of mine who left university, went to San Francisco, taught school, did all of that, came back to a small town in Montana, bought the saloon, the oldest saloon in Montana, the Bulldog in Whitefish. And the first couple of years, he's putting like $250,000 US in his jeans and wasn't teaching school. And I thought, That's a good buy.
There's something there.
What was I thinking? You know, we're struggling along trying to afford a house in Vancouver.
Exactly.
And you call the little podunk town in Montana.
That's true.
And there they are.
Well, I come from this small fishing village, and I remember one guy who got out of school at grade 4. I mean, I went to university and did all this stuff.
Sure.
He bought this fishing boat that was the size of a mini Titanic that had all the bells and whistles on it. And I said to him, Wallace, you know, how did you do this? Well, you know, I fish in the spring, and I farm in the summer, and I cut wood in the winter, and he has about 9 different entrepreneurial jobs that he does, and he puts all his money in his jeans. And I mean, what else is there?
That's good. Well, buy a Dairy Queen in a small town, and we'll see what happens.
There you go.
You just never know. How nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
This is available in the bookstores, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Turbocharge your retail business, how to outmaneuver and outperform the big guys. We'll talk about that another day.
Sorry.
And
I was going to say online. You can buy it online at my website.
Of course you can. I knew that would be possible. Thank you. Roy Prevost.